Welcome, and we're here to talk about Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Welcome, everyone. It is I, your Duke of Dullness, the Baron of Bourne, your Sultan of Sarcasm, the Captain of Redbackness. I'm Scotia from Beyond the Fan. Join me in exploring the good, the bad, and the ugly side of pulp culture as I answer the question, are we getting the pulp culture entertainment we deserve? This is a triumph of mediocrity, another example of minimum effort MCU phase bore. The best I'll say is the support and older cast really elevate the performances in this movie. The special effects are good, and the fighting, the choreography is done well in a lot of places, but some of the camera choices and some of the special effects makes it hard to recognise good quality fighting compared to just good quality CGI. So really, for me, who is the star of this movie? Is it Sean or Shang-Chi? Or is it Katie? It's really hard. Shang-Chi is like a side character in his own movie. Our first introduction to him is basically a joke. The setup is he's getting dressed, getting a suit on. It then cuts to someone getting out of a car. You think that's him, but actually no, he's the person, the valet, taking the car. I don't know why you'd want to introduce your character and set him up to be a punchline of a joke, but that's what you do. And then straight away, he's not even in charge of that. It's actually his partner, Katie, who is taking the keys off him, getting in the car and convincing him to jump in the passenger seat and ride off. And I'm like, is this their first day in the job, or is this something they've been doing all the time? She takes control, and it's really Katie's story for the first 30 minutes of the movie. You get introduced to her, you find out when you meet with her friends later on, you find out the backstory and how when he was 15, first went to school, about to get attacked, and it was Kate that jumped in and kind of stopped it from happening. Not in a violent way, but just kind of de-escalate the situation by singing a song to the person. It's set up like she's the hero, like it's her story, which is really to understand. And throughout the kind of first half of the film, it's about Kate, it's about Katie. I'll just refer to him as Sean because he's chosen that name for himself, whereas Shang-Chi was something his parents, his dad gave to him. So Sean goes to get ready, goes out for work, but actually before he goes to work, he goes to Katie's apartment where her family is, has a bit of interaction with their family, and then gets Kate and goes. And I'm like, okay, but a lot of it is set up as if they're friends, but also a couple. And it's not very clear. I got a sense from it that people want them to be a couple, but they themselves are just quite happy to be friends with each other. At one point, there was like almost like a double date, but it's actually the two of them catching up with their friend from school and her husband. So I don't think it was that double date. I think it was his friends catching up. But the grandmother at the sort of breakfast scene is wanting to know when Sean will make the move on Katie. But I do think that's just a mixed message in terms of the director and the writing there. We even have this ongoing joke about Sean just being a valet, that's all he amounted to. And I'm like, is this like a Hollywood exec joke taking the piss out of the valets? I mean, so what? He's got a blue collar job. At least he's working. Yeah, he's a bit of a Katie's a bit of a goof and likes to kind of take the car and go for a joyride, but Sean seems quite hard working in what he's doing, quite diligent, quite serious. So again, setting him up to be a joke, to be taken the piss out of. He gets attacked on the bus. We've seen that in the trailers. It's fairly good kind of martial arts. It's hard to tell what's actually him and what's CGI. Kate is there. She's shocked. Never seen him fight before. Razorfister shows up, starts attacking at this point, trying to get the pendant he's wearing. On the bus, the driver's been knocked out, so Kate kind of takes over and kind of displays some of her driving skills. Once they kind of escape that situation, Sean starts explaining his backstory, how his dad trained to be an assassin, how on his first mission he couldn't go through with the kill, escaped, went to America, came up with a fake backstory where he goes to school at 15, 16, and that's how we meet. He now needs to go to where his sister is. He's not seen his sister since he ran away, but he knows he needs to go to her because months ago she sent a postcard as like a hint to where she is. So this is what I really don't understand about his postcard. His sister's not seen him since he ran away from home because he doesn't want to be an assassin. Hides himself, takes on a new name, etc. Goes for 10 years without being discovered. Without his sister contacts via his postcard. Like, he doesn't question that. He's not worried that because his sister's found him, maybe his dad can find him. He does not question that at all. I won't do anything much now. So months go by and events of the film kind of kick off, and now he realises that his dad might be coming after his sister because they both have these pendants from their mother, and he's after these pendants, and that's why he's attacked. So his dad managed to track him down and has gone after him. So Sean decides to go get his sister, and Katie wants to come with him because she's his friend. Even though he would be putting her in danger, he still decides it's okay for her to come. I don't know why, but again, she does not need to be there. On the plane, we have Sean kind of recount his very, quite emotional story to Katie about his upbringing, etc. Only for it to be kind of interrupted by the stewardess on the plane, doing a joke about what meals they want, etc. I'm like, why would you undercut such an emotional moment between two important characters? We're supposed to believe these two people are best friends, and it turns out that Sean's been lying to his best friend for the past 10 years. She's never questioned his backstory and respected that, and now she's actually going to find it out and think, alright, let's interrupt that moment with a joke. Totally do not understand the decision making and the writing behind this. So he finds his sister, not before he has to kind of compete in some martial arts tournament. Abomination and Wong sort of fighting there. Turns out they're working together for some reason, but they don't really go into it. And of course, when he's fighting, his sister comes out as his opponent. His sister kicks his arse, he loses, and then his dad shows up and starts attacking. So basically, it's a big fight scene inside the building, and his dad kind of captures him and takes him back to his compound. And at the compound, his dad explains he's hearing his dead wife's voice, and it's telling him to go to the village and, find her soul, find her body that's been kept behind this village, a village she grew up in, and bring her forth back into the world. He explains the Mandarin, the joke Mandarin from Iron Man 3. He's been taken in as a jester, as a joke. We found it funny. Sean and his sister do not agree with his dad. Don't think we should be doing this. Think there's something going on here. So we get locked in a dungeon, and there we hear Trevor. Trevor was the guy playing the Mandarin from Iron Man 3. Makes some jokes. His sister discovers a tunnel. So yet again, Sean isn't the driving force here. It's his sister that discovers a tunnel and gets them out. That's fine if it's her movie, but it's supposed to be Sean's movie. Shouldn't he be having some direction, some drive, some agency in his own movie? We head to this magical village, get in, and find a bit of history about the mother and what's going on there. Turns out there's a demon behind this gated wall in this mountain, and the demon's been calling to his dad, trick him into thinking it's his mum, but it's not. We've got to stop this demon from coming out, because if it gets out, it'll start eating people's souls, and that's basically the premise of what the kind of third act. He's got to stop this from happening, and this is where it really starts to go, crazy bonkers in terms of what we're supposed to believe here. So from the space of the day, Katie learns how to be a kind of expert with a bow and arrow, and this really does matter later on for the kind of finale of the film. He learns how to fight like his mum. He learns so much in such a short space of time. When talking to his aunt, he kind of flashes back to what happened to his mother. It turns out she got killed just by a bunch of normal guys. I'm like, she's meant to be a magical martial artist, but she got taken down by it was a lot of guys, like 20 guys, but still were just normal guys, and she couldn't defend it. So his dad shows up with 10 rings, obviously, and 10 rings referring to the bracelets on his arm and his army of guys. Big battle at the village. His dad eventually makes it to the mountain and starts releasing the demon. So these kind of flying bat things come out and start sucking the souls out of people. At one point, Sean gets knocked into the ocean onto a river, kind of sinks down and gets kind of rescued by a dragon. So he emerges riding this dragon. He beats up his dad, wins the fight, kind of thing. He beats his dad by fighting like his mother. And I think his dad recognises the fact that he's learned a lot, both from him and from his mother in the village. Realises his mistake, realises he's been tricked by this demon, tries to make amends, but is killed by the demon thing, which turns out to be a big dragon. So Sean takes the rings and he goes and fights the dragon. He rides on another dragon. So we have a big battle in the sky. We kind of figure out its weakness is its neck, where it's taking a soul. So the demon is kind of sucking the soul of a dragon. Sean's trying to fight it. At this point, Katie's able to kind of, from, I don't know, a mile away or something ridiculous like that, is able to kind of fire an arrow, and it's a special arrow, but she's able to fire as if she's an expert and hits the mark and does a lot of damage to it. He kills it by exploding the rings inside it. Everybody's happy, everybody's saved. His dad had a poignant moment where, as he was having his soul sucked out, he kind of had a connection with his son and realised what the man his son had becoming. So yeah, that was kind of a gist of the movie. It was a kind of scene, post-credits scene, where it's Sean and Katie retelling this story, the events of the movie, to their two friends from the start who don't really believe it. And Wong shows up in a portal and takes away and reveals that the rings are sent at a beacon, and Captain Marvel and Hulk's there to have a discussion. But we don't actually find out what's going on. We've just kind of got more questions, so stay tuned for the next installment. It started off well and just continued to get worse as things progress. It does end with this kind of tongue-in-cheek moment of the two of them and Wong going to karaoke and singing which is kind of fun. It's a callback to the start with two of them were singing in a karaoke, and it's just to kind of end on a lighter tone. You know, what's the tone of this movie? Is it serious? Is it dramatic? Is it funny? Is it a comedy? Too many tones in this movie, and it didn't really work harmoniously together. They worked in opposition to each other rather than working together and strengthening things. So I don't really know what other critics. So I knew what other critics were saying before I saw the movie, and after seeing the movie, I don't quite understand. You know, did we watch the same movie? Why were we saying this is a triumph? Why were we saying this is one of the top 5 movies of the MCU, or in general of comic book movies? I do not get this at all. It's an average film with some pretty good at points fight scenes, and at other times quite average fight scenes. It's quite a mixture of tone, which kind of has an impact of it being very chaotic. Sean is not the main character of the story. It's everyone around about with far more interest and have far more agency and contribute far more to the actual resolution of this movie at the end. And it's interesting, some of the early reviews talking about a triumph, as I mentioned, talked about it being good. We keep talking about how it's improved, how it's good, how it's, you know, a great example of the MCU, but it's not. It's just an average MCU movie. That's all it is. You know, it's not a bad movie as such. You know, it definitely doesn't meet any of the hype going into it. But it was an okay movie. I mean, for an unknown actor, for an unknown character, it did okay. Keep talking about it being new but different. Keep talking about it being improved. Keep talking about it changing the formula, the MCU formula. But really, it's this whole tell don't show, minimum effort, MCU phase bore. It's frustrating. It could have been a really good story here. It could have had a story about, you know, almost like a Skywalker, Anakin Skywalker, father and son story here. Sean's father, you know, go down a dark path, and his son bring him out of it and sacrifice himself to save the day. But they were so muddled and confused throughout this movie. I do not know what the kind of cohesive through line was supposed to be. It just really seemed like a bunch of set pieces strung together in the most basic way possible, with characters, you know, just being there for the sake of being there. It's like there's a moment at the end we want to get to that moment. You know, it's almost as if we said we want to be at the end with Sean and Katie describing what happened to everyone in terms of the film, in terms of her to Sean, and then how do we get to that point? Well, she's got to be there without it to know it all. So critics were talking about this being one of a triumphant movie going experience. It really wasn't. I'm sorry, it's just my opinion, but just sit down and analyse it step by step. It's an average film, and that's what really hangs me up on this. If we were just honest and said this was an average film, given the last MCU film we had with Black Widow, it's better than that, but that's not saying much. So it's damned by faint praise, I think the expression is. If you like what I do, please consider subscribing to the channel, liking and sharing these videos. It's one of the few ways independent content creators like myself get traction on the platform these days. And to everyone who's already subscribed, thank you for your continued support. Now on with the video. So if you're looking for a good martial arts film, interestingly, the fight choreographer behind this movie, who sadly passed away, was also the fight choreographer on the first Matrix film. I would highly recommend checking out the first Matrix film if you haven't. And if you're looking for a Marvel origin story to watch again, I'd recommend Iron Man. I think not only did it set up the MCU, but it kind of set up what the good MCU formula could have been. So throughout this, I've been thinking as well about Spider-Man. He was a teenager when he got his powers. I had to balance being a kid, being a teenager at school, and being a hero. The reason why I think about this, both Sean and Peter were about the same age, because Sean mentioned when he was about 16 that he went on his first mission to assassinate someone, went to high school to hide, kept on the down low. Sean didn't use his powers for good when he was in hiding, he just didn't avoid all fights sort of thing. Peter, on the other hand, was driven to use his powers for good and try and balance that as well as being superhero, that of a teenager. I just feel like Spider-Man was done better as a character in that sense of balancing being a superhero and being a kid. And it just seems like with Sean, the whole time for the past 10 years, he did nothing heroic. He had this ability to fight, didn't use it, only used it when he had to. So which I found very strange. And we've done setting up characters better in the past. Peter Parker was a bit of a joke in terms of he was a geek, got picked upon, but it made sense because he didn't have his powers and he was a high school nerd, so it made sense people would make fun of him for that. Shang-Chi, you know, he never It never explained why they were making fun of him. You know, the movie director, the writers, the producers, constantly made Sean butt of most of the jokes, constantly portrayed him in a bad light, and really had him being the passion in his own movies. The whole scene at the start with Katie and Sean in the car is a real setup for the whole movie, in the sense that it's Sean being in the passenger seat while other people take control and drive the narrative forward. And the postcard, so it's revealed during the course of the movie that the postcard wasn't sent by his sister, and it's probably sent by his dad. So the idea here is his dad found his sister, didn't do anything. His dad found Sean, didn't do anything. Sent a postcard pretending it's from his sister to Sean. Sean got the postcard, didn't do anything. And months later, his dad decides, I've had enough, I need independence, I'm going to attack Sean. Okay. He then, because Sean has a postcard, he then goes to see his sister for the first time in 10 years or so. At that point, his dad decides that's the point I'll show up when they're both together and catch them both. And the thing is, it works, he does catch both of them, but I'm like, you could have caught them at any point, and sure, it would have been easy to catch them separately, individually, when together in one place. We needed Sean to get in touch with his sister, haven't been in touch with her for the past 10 years, so the postcard was just like a plot device to make that happen. And they had to have her not send it because she didn't want contact with him. So it had to be the dad that sent it. I mean, it just feels like the better way to do that would have been if there was someone in his dad's organisation who took a liking to Sean and his sister and helped him escape or helped keep him hidden, and it was through him that his dad tracked him down and reunited him, etc. To recap, Shang-Chi would have been a better film if it spent more time focused on Shang-Chi himself, less time on the supporting cast, more time given to his story and explaining the backstory, and more time spent on the hand-to-hand martial arts rather than the CGI martial arts. Hope you enjoyed the video. I would love to know what you think. Do you think we're getting the pulp culture entertainment we deserve? Let me know in the comments and drop me a like if you do. When it comes to pulp culture, I'm not certain for this, and neither should you. If you want to do more, please watch my other videos, or take the next step and start creating your own. We need more independent voices out there creating content. Until next time, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. If you like what you've heard and want more, please like and subscribe to the channel. If you didn't like what you heard, I thank you for making it this far.